The meeting of Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. May we please have roll call?
Director Elliott,
Present.
Director Cardoza,
Present.
Director White,
Present.
Director Robinson absent,
At the moment.
Director Crane,
Present.
Chair Brown.
Present. Okay, Mr. Watt, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, we're on to the consent items. We have approval of the minutes from the March 13, 2018 meeting.
I would move we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
All righty. A motion and a second. Should we vote by we don't vote by the buttons. We should do a roll call, please.
Director Elliott,
If I wasn't at the meeting, would I abstain from the vote on the minutes? Abstain?
Abstain?
Director Cardoza,
Aye.
Director White,
Aye.
Director Crane,
Aye.
Chair Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now, item number 4 is staff updates. I'm going to ask for one, and then as my discretion as chair, I'm going to make a formal announcement. Ms. Duquette, do we have any staff report? Okay, thank you. I have given you all a copy of a letter that came in today. I received this information early this morning. And it actually is a letter that is dated May 10th from PG&E to the Eel Russian River Commission. But I felt it was really important to share this with this agency, mainly because it impacts what we're going to do and maybe our planning. And basically, PG&E has decided to put the Potter Valley project up for auction this fall. What does this mean? I'm not quite sure for all of us, and I would recommend to all of us on the commission to go back to your respective bodies and report this information. And I'm not sure how you all operate, but it would be very important that you have or do a selection of representatives that want to be in the discussion as to what this means to all of us and where to go. I'm going to have it on the next Board of Supervisors agenda and ask for an ad hoc to be appointed. Any comment or questions? Here we go. So is it let the games begin or what? So anyway, that I just wanted to share all that because it's all coming out, and didn't want anyone to be blindsided that sits on this body. Next, we'll move on to public comments on items not on the agenda. This is for the public. Would anyone like to speak? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to the action items. We're on number 6. A, discussion and possible action regarding informal presentation on the United States Geological Survey hydrologic characterization and coupled watershed and groundwater flow model of the Russian River watershed. Wow. Tracy, would you like to come up to the speaker stand, introduce yourself for the record? Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Tracy Nishikawa. I'm with the USGS in San Diego. I'm here to give a quick overview of a project we're about a year or so into, looking at the entire Russian River watershed, which you guys are obviously a part of. So just tell you a little bit about myself. I got my undergraduate at Humboldt State, up the road here. I can't tell you how many times I stopped at, I don't know if it's the same McDonald's here on State Street to have something to eat on my way up to school.
It is.
It is, okay.
It
Well,
is.
that McDonald's I used to stop at all the time. And I think the Taco Bell was there too. And then subsequently got my PhD at UCLA, and I've been with the USGS for about 27 years or so. So what I thought I'd do today is start off by just giving a, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the USGS, and I thought maybe I'd just give a quick 6 or 7 slide overview of the agency, just so we're all on the same page, or not after I give the talk. All right, so we're a federal agency, and we're part of the executive branch, and we're an agency within the Department of Interior. And you can see all of our sister agencies in there. But unlike our other sister agencies, such as the Bureau of Reclamation, Bureau of Land Management, we don't manage any lands. We're a basic science organization. So we were established in 1879 as part of the Western movement, and the government wanted to map have an idea of what the minerals were in the western United States, map the western United States, and so we were established for that purpose. So again, we're a science bureau within the Department of Interior. We have a unique combination of earth, biology, and physical sciences, and we conduct surveys, investigations, and research, of which, say, the Russian River Project, which I'll talk about later, is one of. Again, we're an independent fact-finding agency, so we have no basis for advocacy. That is, we're known for our unbiased science. If we work, say, with, let's say, this board here on a project, we may not give you the answer you may want to hear, but it's going to be based on good science. Again, we have no regulatory or policy functions, so policy would be like the EPA, right? They would set policy in terms of air quality, water quality, that kind of thing. And we support our sister agencies with science information. For example, I'm working with a BLM on a project down in the Mojave Desert right now. And we also partner with over more than 2,000 agencies, so state, local, tribal governments, the academic community, other federal agencies, and non-governmental organizations, water districts, cities, counties, et cetera. So, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, we had a new director, and they decided we're going to have this new organization because everyone wants to put their stamp on things. So they came up with a science strategy of 6 different core mission areas, of which water is one of them. And since I'm in water, that's probably the most important one, and that's the one I'm going to talk about. So water includes groundwater resources. We have a program called the National Water Quality Assessment, which takes like snapshots nationwide of the current state of the water quality, groundwater and surface water. We run the stream gauge networks, of which there's a number on the Russian River. And we also have the Cooperative Water Program, which helped fund the Russian River Project. Okay, that's a real broad overview. Are there any questions? Okay. Yes.
Seeing none, please.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, so now we're changing gears. We're going to talk about the Russian River Watershed Project. Okay, I might have mentioned earlier, there's a cooperative water program, a USGS cooperative water program. And in that program, currently the federal government contributes about 10% of the cost of a project, and cooperators, that is our co-funding agencies, contribute the balance. And in this case, in this project, the cooperators for this project, the Sonoma County Water Agency, the State Water Resources Control Board, the City of Ukiah, the County of Mendocino, the Mendocino County Russian River Flood Control District, and the Upper Russian River Water Agency. So, the Russian River, its highly variable hydrology presents significant challenges for water supply and environmental water managers. Currently, there are 2 Sustainable Groundwater Management Act Sigma medium priority basins. You know you're one of them. Ukiah and Santa Rosa Plain is the other. And maybe there's more on the way if they reanalyze some of the local basins. So current and future challenges include, maintaining reliable flows for fisheries, extreme events due to climate change, which couples with greater hydrologic variability, and stream flow and groundwater storage depletion due to, say, pumping. So our project objectives are to refine the understanding of the Russian River watershed based on analysis of new and available field data, and to develop a coupled watershed groundwater flow model of the watershed that will facilitate improved management of the region's water resources. So here's our study area. So the green outline is this is the entire watershed, right? But the Santa Rosa Plain, we already studied that on another separate project with Sonoma County Water Agency. So that part of the watershed is not being addressed in this project. So we're going to be looking at the entire watershed minus the Santa Rosa Plain. So that's about 1,250 square miles. So the USGS has done work in the past in this area. When I say not the specific area, the general area. Cardwell in '65 looked at the entire Russian River watershed, looked at the hydrogeology and water resources. Metzger in 2006 did a characterization study of the Alexander Valley. I published a report looking at characterize the Santa Rosa Plain, and Wolfenden and I published a model of the Santa Rosa Plain. Department of Water Resources also has published some studies. But you can see that in general, nothing's really been done in the Ukiah area, for example, since maybe '65. So it's been a while. So there's 4 basic tasks to do in this project. First is stakeholder outreach, coming out and talking to GSAs and water boards, et cetera. Data collection and analysis, including compiling data and incorporating into a GIS database, going out and collecting new data, and sitting down and interpreting those data and characterizing the geohydrology. We're going to develop a GS flow model. GS flow is a coupled watershed groundwater flow model of the entire watershed, and then further couple that GS flow model with an optimization code called ModSim. And I'll talk about those in greater detail later. So a part of the outreach project, or part of the task, is to talk to local agencies, right? And we've published this fact sheet, which I think you all got a copy of, right? Everyone got a copy of it? Okay. And we have a website, and I'll show you the website after this, at the end of the talk. So we want to go out and talk to people to identify important water resources issues in the Russian River watershed, help gather data and insights into the hydrologic system, and help determine how water is utilized and managed on the ground as opposed to how we think it's utilized and managed. So we're going to develop a database. This is kind of a cartoon of a database. Now, some of these data are going to be needed to help characterize the watershed, such as the chemistry or the geology, for example. Some of the data is going to need to help build the models. So we're going to need climate data, we're going to need remote sensing data, we're going to need the hydrology. And the other data need to calibrate the model, so we're going to need the hydrology data such as water level data, surface water data, and things like that. And that's going to be built into a GIS database. So the data collection and analysis goals are to identify sources of groundwater recharge, identify groundwater flow paths, so where's the groundwater flowing, refine the hydrogeologic framework model, that is to better understand and conceptualize the hydrogeology of the watershed, identify losing and gaining reaches of the Russian River and main tributaries, and identify areas where wells may capture river underflow. So in June 2017, we had a sampling run where we looked at collected samples from 24 wells shown in the dots, one spring shown in the diamond, 11 surface water sites shown in the green triangles. So we sampled for major ions, so that tells us the water type. Trace elements such as, say, arsenic or iron or something like that, so we have maybe there's constituents of concern in the groundwater. Stable isotopes of oxygen and hydrogen helped us to determine sources of recharge. And age dating, like tritium and carbon-14, we use that to help, again, age date so we know how old that water is. It could be on the order of thousands or tens of thousands years old, potentially. And there's going to be another round of sampling in this area in this coming June. So this is called a simplified, but it's called a geologic map, it's basically a map of, as the geologist walks around, basically what he finds and and then they'll map it. So on this figure, again, the red line is the outline of the watershed. The purple lines are map faults. So there's 5 different kinds of geologic units. The channel alluvium, shown in yellow, is the unconsolidated river stream deposits. So it's right here, and then it's also obviously on the main stem of the Russian. Younger sediments, which are is in the cream color, is alluvium and terrace deposits. So that's also fairly young, and it's also similar to a channel alluvium. Older sediments, so poorly to moderately consolidated, that means how they glom together, the dirt gloms together, how glommy it is. I don't know if that's a geologic term, but I'm using it, I'm going with it. It's continental and moraine deposits, and it's Glen Ellen or Wilson Grove. So Glen Ellen's continental, Wilson Grove is moraine deposit, and that's shown in the brown. And then the Snowball Volcanic, shown in pink, are from local historic ancient volcanoes. And this can be a water-bearing unit. And lastly, shown in gray, is the basement, or the Franciscan Formation. You might call it hard rock. Although some of it may be weathered, the top, say, tens or hundreds of feet might be weathered, so it can transmit water. So, serendipitously, the Army Corps is interested in the bedrock geometry for another project. And so we worked with the Army Corps to collect what's called gravity data. Gravity data are used to map the depth of bedrock. And so what we see in this figure here is that we're looking north, and the gray is bedrock. And those other colors are the same as we talked about before, the channel alluvium, younger, older, etc. The next slide, we're zooming in on the Ukiah Basin. We're kind of looking northwest here. You can, the geologist says ignore that pink stuff there. So basically you got lots of thick, unconsolidated material, older consolidated material. topped by a thin veneer of younger and the channel alluvium. The deepest part of the Ukiah Basin is about 1,200 feet. So this is kind of a cartoon almost of the hydrologic cycle, and talks about the parts of the model of GS flow and what parts simulate what. So there's, like I said, there's two parts. There's a watershed model and there's a groundwater model. The watershed model is called PRMS. PRMS takes precipitation, infiltrates it through the soil column. It'll simulate evapotranspiration. It'll simulate surface runoff, subsurface flow. Then once the water gets past the root zone, it gets into what's called the unsaturated zone, where you have a combination of soil, water, and air, and that's where mod flow takes over. So mod flow simulates it through the groundwater, the recharge through the unsaturated zone until it hits the water table. Then you're in the saturated zone where all you have is groundwater, and groundwater will flow with the. Okay, as we all know, water flows downhill. It's going to flow downhill from high potential, low potential. It might flow through that stream, et cetera. Yeah. So for PRMS, again, the black line is our study area. Our model grid is going to be 300 meters by 300 meters, so about 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet. Okay. Each grid for PRMS is called a hydrologic response unit, or HRU, and it's assumed that each HRU is homogeneous within that HRU with respect to hydrologic and physical characteristics. So the stream network that we're simulating, make sure I didn't skip a slide, yeah, is shown here. So data from 21 stream gauges were collected and processed. So we're going to use unimpaired stream flow, estimated unimpaired stream flow to calibrate the PRMS model. So, I mean, it may not, I can't tell you exactly, the order of streams that we went to, but it's a fairly high resolution stream network. The data used to drive PRMS include daily precipitation, daily min and max temperature, soils data, land use data, percent impervious. If you have a parking lot, it doesn't soak up water as well as a field does, for example. And again, it's calibrated to estimated unimpaired stream flow and measured stream flow. So that's coupled to a groundwater model. Okay, I've already used the concept of water table. Everyone knows that term, water table. All right, so say this floor is the water table. So there's an infinite number of points on this floor here. So and so we have to do is pick our places that we want to estimate the water table using our model. So that's what we have to do, is we have to discretize space. So in this case, again, we're talking about 300 meter, 1,000 foot by 1,000 foot. So every 1,000 feet, we're going to try to simulate water levels. Okay. Now, we also have to say, all right, time. Time is also continuous. And so we have to discretize time, and we're going to go with 1 month stress periods. So that means over 1 month, the stresses are constant. For example, pumping. So the vertical discretization, okay, I talked about the horizontal discretization. The vertical discretization is going to be based on the hydrogeology of the geologic framework I just talked about. Okay, so what we've talked about doing initially is doing what's called a 3-layer model. We'll combine the younger deposits with the channel alluvium. That's 1 layer. The older sediments coupled with Sonoma volcanics would be another layer, and the bottom layer would be the weathered bedrock, which could then is a potential source of water. Stresses include domestic pumping, municipal pumping, and ag pumping, natural and anthropogenic recharge. The model is going to be calibrated to groundwater levels, changes in groundwater levels, and stream flow data. So this just shows a distribution of where we have USGS groundwater level data, DWR groundwater level data, and where we have stream flow data.
Tracy? Hang on just 1 minute. Come on up. Please note for the record that Director Robinson is here at 1:55.
Do I have to start over?
Sorry.
No, my God.
I think he knows a lot. It's part of his education.
Excuse me, everyone.
Thank you, Tracy.
No worries. So so on a model, there's various knobs that you can tweak to make the model fit or match observed data. And that process of knob tweaking is called calibration. So we're going to do it in a two-stage approach. The first stage is that we're going to decouple PRMS and mod flow. That is, they're not going to talk to each other. And we're going to calibrate them individually. And then once we get them pretty close, we'll couple them together and calibrate the coupled GS flow model. So the last part of the process is ModSim. Okay, ModSim is a reservoir management model, and it's going to be developed based on Sonoma County's reservoir simulation model, which I think they call ResSim. Whoops. So again, ModSim addresses water rights and reservoir operations. So, for example, we have the eRIMS database, so we know where the diversions are. And then we also have the releases from Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. So we're going to use that. We're going to use ModSim to come up with the optimal release policies, and for the diversions, not historic diversions, but for diversions based on some kind of future scenario. So let's say there's a climate change scenario. It's drier, it's wetter, whatever it is. That may change the diversion policy, and it'll be incorporated in ModSim. All right, so there's our website, and there's my email address. It's also on the fact sheet, I believe, and I have some business cards here. All right, and then here's for the USGS reports. Here's the links for the USGS reports. So you have an idea of what kind of stuff we do. Okay, so now I'm here as part of my outreach is for a data plea. So we could use, we do have well-related data, but we can always use more well-related data in terms of drillers' logs and geophysical logs. These remain confidential because owner's information is PII, right? We could use pumpage data, specifically ag and rural domestic pumping, because those are two of the big unknowns in any basin. And well access, if if you have a well, someone has a well out maybe in the hinterlands that we haven't sampled, and it might be interesting. We could, we don't have a lot of times we aren't given permission to access wells. Oh, I thought I had some more slides. Oh, that's right. Okay, and also, I'll speak directly to the tribal representative. I'm not sure if the tribe's data are in the state water database, but oftentimes we have trouble gaining access to those wells too. So if there's any kind of, say, a municipal well that's being pumped at a rancheria or something like that, we could use those data. On the ag side, we could use, actually I had a list of, it's on a different version of the presentation. I can talk to you offline, but more direct water use information, like we might have a water demand for grapes. I don't know. Let's say it's a foot per acre. I'm not saying it's a foot. And in actuality, you guys apply a 1/4 foot per acre because you want to increase the sugar content or something. I don't know. That kind of thing. Kind of more boots on the ground information. And I can send you email directly, but any kind of information like that would be really helpful. I mean, we can make an assumption, like I said, the books say a foot an acre for grapes, and we can use that, but it may not really be the stresses that are being applied to the system. So, are there any questions?
Yes, there are. Director White?
Go ahead.
Well, I had a couple. One of the last slides you showed was the ResGem, I believe it was called. Or
ModSim?
RedSim. Takes into account water rights and reservoir operations. Is that book value on those water rights, or is that reported usage?
It's what's reported.
Okay, so that comes from
Because
the annual
there's an
reports.
eRIMS database. I
Yeah.
don't even know what the acronym stands for,
Yeah.
but we're going to use that as a basis.
Okay, and then the other question was, your study period was 1990 to 2015.
Correct.
And there was also a slide that showed the mean precipitation for the various areas. Was that for that 15-year period, or was that the one that we've seen for like historical?
That's a good question. I was just trying to put something up so it wasn't too boring to look at. I don't know, to be honest.
But you would be using a 15-year period? one?
Yes.
Okay, because we don't want the Colorado River repeat.
No. Yeah, I mean, we would drive it with data, the temperature data, the precip data, et cetera, for the period that
Okay.
we're simulating. Yes.
All right.
Whatever. And again, I'm sorry, I don't know if that's that period or not, but.
My question was answered.
Anyone else? Questions?
Tracy, I know you've looked at a lot of previous modeling efforts that have been done, certainly in this area, but maybe the basin as a whole. Is there anything that strikes you as something that you're going to be doing that is fundamentally different? Or would you consider this to be more of an advancement and a refinement of previous work?
I want to say yes to both. There has not been a coupled watershed groundwater model. Okay. That being said, previous models have taken recharge somehow, natural recharge, and distributed it somehow. But the way we're doing it has not been done before. GS flow is a relatively new model. So, I mean, it's being applied more and more globally, but it's still a relatively new model. Now, on the other hand, ModFlow has been around for a long time. Okay, it's the de facto standard for groundwater flow models globally. It's open source, it's been tested globally, so it's a really good, robust model. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect, but it's been tested worldwide. And so, I don't want to say, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, or it's never been done before, but there are parts of it that haven't been done in this area before.
Thank you. No, that's great. That's great. And the follow-up on that is, I have a feeling a year or two from now, we're going to be super interested in certain places where we're worried we could have a problem, a localized type of problem, and also certain times of year. So how soon do you think it would be that your modeling results would have that type of resolution where you're focused in on a particular place and you could look at, maybe even draft results for a particular time of year in a particular place?
Or is this all still years and years down the line?
Well, I think our timeline is 2020, 2021, something like that. Now, okay, as I said, the spatial discretization is about 1,000 by 1,000 feet. You know, let's say when we're done, a consultant, LACO, could come and take it, cut off a piece, the northern piece of it, refine the grid to 100 by 100, and really zone into that part, that place you're interested in. Maybe 1,000 by 1,000 will answer your question right off the top. Now, our temporal discretization's a month, so I don't know what, you know. I mean, the state board was interested initially in frost protection, so that's sub-daily. We can't do sub-daily. I mean, just it's not built into the model. We can do daily, but we can't go sub-daily. So it depends on what kind of temporal resolution you're looking at. So if it's a month, then we're good. Because and remember, you have to have the data to support that that extra, say, the temporal resolution, particularly for the stresses. Yes.
In your plea for data, do you have? I imagine that your data is not uniform. Every spot doesn't have the same quantity and quality of data.
Yeah.
So there must be some areas where you're kind of data rich and other areas where you're data poor, like data desert, so to speak. Do you have any way to show where those are so people that may be in those places could respond to that request?
Well, you can see, for example, our water quality sampling. You know, you can see it's basically in the alluvium. Okay, like the blue areas, the purple area, and stuff like that. And so we could use some data, because we were interested in what the water quality is as it comes in from the mountains and goes into the basin, how it changes. Because that'll tell you a lot. Mm-hmm. You know, whether the water's interacting with the rock it's flowing through or not. Is it or is it not interacting, that kind of thing. How long is that flow path? Then you can see from, even with these water level data, you can see that they're really heavy on, well, where everybody lives. You know, I mean, and then there's not as many municipal wells and stuff like that that they can access, say up here. And you know, and maybe water level data may not be realistic for, say, somebody's well in there for their home. But if we could maybe, if they got a driller's log and we can figure out what's beneath the ground, you know, we have an idea, but we don't know exactly. So if we can get driller's logs or a geophysical log, how soon do they hit bedrock up there in the mountains? We think it should be pretty thin, but you know, do they hit bedrock? Do they hit volcanics? We don't think they should hit volcanics up here. They should be all down here, but again.
So, I mean, that's a very crude
Yeah,
how could you say, like, well, I'm in that spot where he's got its information, or I'm out of it?
I can come up with a more higher resolution data plea.
Yeah, I think
And
that would be helpful.
I'll share that with I'll share it with Sarah, who will share it with you.
Be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Two things. A portion of this you put together for this meeting, a portion of it is information that you utilize on a regular basis.
That's a generic, no, we put that together for just for handing out for this general project.
But the information here is specific to our greater community. A lot of it is somewhat more generic, seemingly. What is the date of the components that make this up? How old is the data? You can have this one. Here.
So, okay, so, well, I think figure 1 of the watershed is we updated for this particular publication. This figure 2 showing the kind of the conceptual model of a hydrologic system is actually from the Santa Rosa Plain project. We took out some of the specifics and generalized it, but that's basically where that's from.
So that's somewhat an assumption.
Oh, yeah. This is just, okay, that's why we just said conceptualize, right? This is a cartoon, you know.
Director Crean, they can't hear you on the microphone, so you better.
So it's, and then the centralized database, I think we borrowed from another one of our reports from another project. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Pretty much. And then figure 1, you said that was put together for this
Yeah, I
presentation?
mean, yes.
And how old is the data that supported it?
Ooh,
What's the most recent component of data for that?
I don't know. You know, it's probably the watershed outline. I'm going to guess probably within since the 2000s. There's a HUC database, hydrologic units. Do you know anything about the HUC database, Chris? So, is there something outdated on this? I guess
No.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
trying to learn.
Did we misspell Ukiah? I mean, it's like, which
That'd be-
don't put it past us.
So that'd be haiku, right?
Don't put it past us. to misspell
Thank you.
Ukiah.
Okay, any other questions, directors? Tracy, if you just have a seat for a minute, maybe the public would like to come up and they have any questions or comments.
So, Devin Jones, Mendocino County Farm Bureau. Just a couple of questions, actually. One of the slides discussed identifying areas where well pumps might be pumping underflow, and that's something I think that a lot of us are very interested in, given that we have a lot of wells that have been determined to be underflow sort of indiscriminately over the years. So I was wondering if Mr. Tracy could elaborate on that a bit. Also, I noticed that looking at the stream gauges, those 21 gauges, that the stream gauges seem to be mostly in Sonoma County, not necessarily up in Mendocino. So I was wondering, how did that possibly affect the modeling assumptions in Mendocino County? And then finally, you know, was there any sort of loose accounting per se for any illegal diversions that aren't necessarily going to be in the eRIMS database to look at overall water use within the basin? Thank you.
Okay, I'm supposed to remember all those. Let's see here. Okay, so underflow.
She'll keep you on track.
Underflow. Well, I mean, okay, I'm no geochemist, but we can look at the different water signatures and say, okay, this river has a certain type of chemical signature. Let's say groundwater off the river has a different signature, and so if the well has the same signature as the river, then it's capturing river water. I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic, but yeah, that's basically it. For example, we were just looking at a well, I think it's actually pumped by the city of Ukiah, very close to the river. It's like 300 feet deep, and it's not getting river water. You can tell by the chemical signature. Does that? And
Yelling up here. I guess ultimately my question was going how Sigma and how we're going to be dealing with Sigma and groundwater is going to overlap or change some of the already interpretations of the State Water Board's decisions on the licensing of some of these underflow wells, and then, you know, maybe how we could get more out, some in, those types of things.
Okay. Yeah, for example, the wells that are known to pull in river water, let's say the Rainy wells down by Healdsburg, those are actually, I think, identified as diversions within eRIMS. So if it's a well that's in eRIMS, we treat it as a diversion. Yes. So if it's not in eRIMS, then we treat it as a groundwater well.
Sorry. Have you tested any of the wells?
Come up to the microphone, please.
Sorry. I guess one of my requests then might be possibly to consider looking at some of the agricultural underflow wells, because that's one of the debates we've been looking at, is really, you know, what frying pan do we want to be in? Do we want to be in the frying pan of regulation with the state, or do we want to be in the frying pan of regulation with groundwater? And are the wells that we're looking at now that have been determined to be under no known reason to us, are they truly underflow? So I'm just wondering if that's something to look at.
Well, I can't speak specifically of the wells we sampled for water quality, groundwater quality, any of which were ag wells. But if you're volunteering a well, yeah. So let me leave you my card, and maybe we can talk. Let's see here. There was something else. Oh, Sonoma. Okay, they are what they are. It's who's funding it. Now, for example, the unimpaired stream flows. We have to. Well, Sonoma County did some work and estimated the unimpaired stream flows. Unimpaired means not affected by the dams and diversions and things like that. And so it's only not all 21. They only do about 5 on the main stem, maybe. And so it's not going to be every single one. Obviously, it helps to have a higher resolution, but we work with the data we have. Oftentimes, it's a local cooperator where might be the flood control district or a county or something, city that might be helping fund those stream gauges. And I can have, if there's a real interest in the stream gauges, we have a USGS office right here in Ukiah, and I can have the office chief get in touch with you guys and maybe give a quick overview if that's a question.
I have a question.
What was the last one? There's illegal diversions in Mendocino County. I am shocked. Shocked. Yeah, there's no. We can't address that. We don't. I can follow up on that, but I don't. Where would that illegal water be used? Where are those illegal farms located? That kind of thing. Do you have a?
Sit closer, walk less.
Well, I guess my question is, how, without looking at something of that consideration, how that might look for impacts to existing legitimate reported water rights usage, because a lot of the times if you don't look at the full account, that sort of burden or those assumptions get placed on just the solely reported legal diversions, not looking at, others.
I don't know. I can follow up with our surface water people and get more input, but I don't know. Or off the top of my head, I would say if we don't know about it, then it's hard to address it. We know about it, but we don't know about it.
There may be ways to incorporate that. Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Nature Conservancy, using aerial photography, has put together what might be a reasonable set of estimates on what that illegal use of water is, at least for growing marijuana.
But with the locations too, on what streams, et cetera?
Yeah, because they're starting with aerial photography to do it, looking at greenhouses and outdoor grows.
I can follow up.
Yeah, I'll send you a link or two.
Yeah.
I have a question. Again.
Yeah, no worries.
So one of the points of discussion that gets brought up periodically is the seasonality. I guess one of the things that ties us into the whole Sigma thing is the surface water, groundwater interaction. And so, there's this question of, is groundwater feeding the river? Is the river supplying groundwater? And so that's seasonal, and which direction is that flow going? Is anything in what you're doing going to be able to clarify that?
Well, yes. I was going to say something flippant, but yes. That's the whole one of the strengths of doing this coupled watershed groundwater model is that we can look at stream aquifer interactions, and for example, in the Santa Rosa Plain, we were able to map locations where groundwater is being depleted. Surface water is being depleted. Times of year and that kind of thing. So yes, that's one of the strengths.
And is that done through the water chemistry approach, or how is
It'll be a simulation. It'll be actually part of the result from the model.
So it's a predicted, not
Yes.
measured.
Well, it's like let's say we're on this little stream up here where there's no gauge or anything like that. What we'll do, like on the main stem, we'll use physical data and chemical data to kind of get a feel for where there's gaining and losing, and we want the model to mimic that. Okay, and then we can also look at, and we're using the model, say, hey, what's happening up there on that tributary up there? Is it gaining or losing water? That kind of thing. So where you don't even have a gauge, we can estimate what's going on in terms of the surface water groundwater interaction.
Okay.
All righty. Then I have a couple of questions. You have asked for more data. So the submittal of that data and or potential for study sites, should that go directly to you?
Yes, I'd be a point of contact, yes.
Okay. And then this is ongoing for a few years.
Yes.
So can we expect updates? How are you going to communicate with the agencies that are mainly involved and water managers within the watershed?
Well, for example, today we have roughly monthly phone calls with the cooperating agencies, just a phone call, and then twice a year, once a year, on everyone's schedule, we have a meeting.
When you say cooperating agencies, what agency might that be for Mendocino County?
I had a list up here, and
okay.
I'm sorry, I don't.
So.
Okay, I'll be honest. The two big players are the Water Agency and the Water Resources Control Board. But yes, these other Mendocino County agencies are involved with it.
Okay, and what I'd like to do at some point soon is have representative or representatives from the other agencies, which would be in the political boundaries of Mendocino County, participate.
Okay.
So those contacts, whomever they may be, then I can give you the information or their information to you, and they can be a part of this process.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Questions? Okay. We really appreciate this. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Mr. Watt, put your name into the record officially.
Hi, Chris Watt. So there was a lot of work that we did under contract with the County of Mendocino for the preliminary GSA that I think, if this agency wants to release that information, we can provide it to Tracy to assist in his efforts. So just wanted to put that cooperation out there if you guys want to go forward with that.
Okay. Because you did it for this entity. And
so it
would
was under
take
a contract with the County of Mendocino technically,
gotcha.
But so I'm not sure how
I'm not
releasing
either.
that would work, but I wanted to put that out there that data is out there.
But that was on behalf of this entity, really.
Ultimately, it was for this agency, yes.
So that kind of sounds like a legal question of county council. And so I'm not sure which body.
Didn't it go to the, when it was given to the,
I mean, it was
The water
presented
board.
to this agency. The
Right.
county paid for it through a grant they received from DWR, and Sarah
Right.
can probably highlight that
Okay,
better.
Sarah, help me out.
Sarah Duquette, Mendocino County. It was a project and a contract with the Mendocino County Water Agency. So it'd be the water agency that releases the data. And I believe that we can make that determination within the agency without board approval.
Without board approval.
Yeah, there's the data is the data. There's not confidential information. But we'll double check. But I don't believe there's any confidential information within the reports, and the reports are already public.
They
So the
are?
data that goes with the reports, I think we could release.
Okay. Mr. Watt.
Yeah, just the well logs, which we have that are kept private, and they're a lot of the information's blacked out, but we have that information electronically.
And if there is well logs or information that USGS does need, they can contact the county, and we do keep them, most of them, with the environmental health. If we don't have them there, then with the state for well logs.
I didn't follow that 100%. So are you saying you'll look at our ability to release it, or you'll go ahead and get it handed over?
We'll do a look just to make sure there's no confidential information before we release the data. And then if you're interested in more well logs, we do have some that the county has in environmental health, and then the state also has additional ones, I believe.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
All righty. So that will help, I think, Tracy. It'd be great. Okay.
Any other questions?
Please, sir, come forward. State your name for the record. We all know you, but you still have to do that. Speak into the mic.
Mike Webster. I'm a retired USGS, and I'm a member of the board of the RCD. There are a lot of agencies besides
Please
USGS.
speak into the mic.
Okay,
So
there are a lot of agencies besides USGS that are collecting water data. For example, the National Weather Service has gauges on Falez Creek, and there's a group called Fish Friendly Farming that has gauges on Lawson Creek, or yeah, I think that's right. And Dooley Creek, which is in Hopland. Weather Service has one on Robinson Creek. Mariposa Creek, which is not working right now because it got whacked by the fire.
And that's up Tomkai.
Yeah, it's Tomkai. And Falez Creek. So, and I know there's also on Mill Creek and out of Dry Creek, and on down into the valley there. Okay. At any rate, I just wanted to let you know that. And the next thing I just had a question about. I know you weren't able to do a seepage run this year, but I was wondering if there was going to be that possibility within the next coming years, and if you just do one for that period, or of the research, or are you just doing going to be doing it a couple of times within the study period?
Regarding the seepage runs, we are not doing a seepage run because talking to some of the surface water guys, doing a seepage run on a controlled flow like the Russian is not illuminating in terms of gaining and losing street reaches. So we decide to use those funds, redirect those funds for more field work.
Okay. Do we have anyone seated here on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency that would like to participate in the calls? Or how would you like to handle that? Should we contact each one of the entities to ask their participation?
This is different than the water managers meeting that occurs monthly.
Yeah, this is just this is specific to this project.
Just to this project.
Well, the people who are currently from these groups that are participating in that water managers meeting, I think would be the most informed and be able to benefit the most from that. So I know from my flood control's point of view, Tamara would be our choice. She's
Okay.
also the only staff member we have, so
Yes.
simple.
For most of the agencies.
Yeah.
And then Vice Chair Crane, would City of Ukiah want to participate, have a participant?
I would imagine so, and I think you've already spoken with some city staff regarding, you spoke to a particular well in the city, which led me to believe you had some contact with city staff.
Sean White, I've talked quite a bit with, and but I won't volunteer him to sit in on a phone call.
Right.
But,
Well,
I mean, I've worked with Sean White. There's another fellow, one of my people have talked to, Jared. Is
Yes.
there Jared?
right.
Yeah, and Mr. Crane is on city council.
Okay, so,
So if you seek information from the city and that isn't forthcoming, if you'd let me know, then I will ask why and be sure that we either get information or an answer why not.
okay. Well, I mean, I think but the question is, which one of your staff would want to sit in on this monthly phone call?
Yeah.
I would think it would be Sean,
All right.
Okay.
the Director of Water.
Yeah. and-
Sarah has my email, so
Okay.
just let me know like who their email contact, and the person who coordinates it is Val Zimmer, who's with State Water Resources Control Board. She's the ringleader, so I'll give her the name and email.
Okay.
You have Sean's contact information?
I do.
Okay.
And also, for this group and our technical advisory group that we have a farm advisor that will probably be representing the county on the technical advisory group. I will speak with him and also Mr. Webster to see about participation for the county of Mendocino.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But thank you so much, and updates maybe yearly. That sounds good to me.
I'm always happy
Do you
to come
agree?
up here.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next item we have, we're going to have an update on Proposition 1, Sustainable Groundwater Planning Grant Solicitation. Ms. Duquette?
Sarah Duquette, Mendocino County. So just a couple quick updates. We were included in the final recommendation for funding, so we will be getting that funding, and the amount is $764,255. We've been contacted by the state. We've provided them with our financial information, and this week I just received the letter and additional information on moving forward and starting the work on relooking at the scope and looking at the agreement and the steps we need to take to start the negotiation process. So I am hopeful that we should have an agreement with the state this summer. Along with that, we are still in the competitive process. We're working to get you guys a contract to review in June. And I can't really tell you too much about where we are with that because we're still in the competitive process, but that's going on. So it looks like we'll be able to get the contract signed and approved in conjunction with the agreement with the state. And then we should be really good to go and start work probably this summer, like maybe late summer. So we're making progress on that. And that's all I have for this item.
Does anyone have questions, comments? Seeing none, public comment? Anyone? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to the next item. And that is C on our agenda, discussion and possible action related to update on the development of a technical advisory committee memorandum of understanding. Ms. Duquette?
Sarah Duquette, Mendocino County. So at the last board meeting we had in March, you guys approved the technical advisory committee MOU. So that went out to all of the agencies. We have all of our local agencies have approved and signed off. The TAC MOU will be going to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors / Board of Directors for the Water Agency on June 11th, and they're the final signature. So we should have a fully executed agreement within a couple days of that. So then we'll be able to start the TAC in conjunction with the agreement. So it looks like everything's coming together, and the TAC, the state agreement, the contractor should all be finalized around the same time. So we're making really good progress.
So all signatures should be in place by our next meeting on June 14th.
Yes.
Okay. All righty.
And I believe most of the local, I have to check but we have the appointment from the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District and the appointment from the California Land Stewardship Institute. And so then when they adopt the TAC at Sonoma County, then we'll get the representative that will be on the TAC from them. So then the one thing we have left is the representation from the various seats. And I know some of you guys may have made decisions on where you want, so that could be an item for the next meeting on the recommended TAC representation from each of your respective agencies. So you can send them directly to me and we can have that as an agenda item the next meeting, so we can formally appoint the TAC representatives and be ready to rock and roll.
Mr. White.
Oh, she addressed it. I know we were expecting to have the names by now, but the process is there, so we'll have it at the next meeting.
Okay. All righty. Anyone from the public? Did I ask that? Can't remember. See none.
I have a question for Sarah. So what does rock and roll mean? Isn't this group supposed to give the TAC guidance about what questions we would like answered, what studies we'd like reviewed?
Mm-hmm. So in our scope of work for the grant, we put in a lot of time for community engagement and stakeholder input. So once we kind of have that vendor in place, we have the agreement, I think we're ready to move forward with having the meeting of or a board item of where we're at, what kind of things are we looking for, what do we want them to review that's already been done, kind of the vision from, hopefully once we have the contract signed, we will have that contractor come here and give you a presentation so you can give them direction on what are the things you want to focus on first, and kind of they can lay out their plan for the 3-year project. But then once that's ready to go, we can actually formally have the TAC meet, maybe late summer, early fall. But that would kind of be the next step. Once the contract's in place, the contractor will come here, give an overview of where they see the 3-year project. You can provide direction on what you're looking for, what you want to see come back, and then direction on what you want them to review, what needs to be reviewed that was already done. And I think the contractor will have a lot to say on how they're going to review it and then move forward. So I think we'll have a busy summer of meetings. So
Thank you.
We'll probably be here June, July, and August.
All righty. Anything else? So let us move on to director's reports. And Director Robinson, there's a letter that I don't know.
I just read the first paragraph.
Okay. I just wanted to
That
make
was the gist of it, wasn't it?
So I just wanted to make sure you saw
Thank
that
you.
in your handouts. Okay. And then, yeah, anyone else?
Nothing to report?
Nothing to report. All right, we are adjourned.
Yeah, well, no.